On the play of the drive, Jacobs will find the end zone. First down and goal, and pitch it to Jacobs. What a block! Delivered by Ingold. And a touchdown.
The Battle of the Cherry Bros came to an end, with the Kangaroos destroying the Savages. Josh Jacobs carried the ball 28 times for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns for 25 fantasy points.
Stafford, great protection. And drops it in there to McKissick, who will find the end zone.
Matthew Stafford threw for 406 yards and 3 touchdowns, giving the Kangaroos 38.90 fantasy points.
That was one of the most exciting 2-yard run ever. That one's thrown to Hopkins for the touchdown. Flag is down.
That's another pass interference. That's a touchdown.
But DeAndre Hopkins puts this one in the end zone.
DeAndre Hopkins caught 8 of his 11 targets for 48 yards and a touchdown for 17.80 fantasy points. George Kittle had a great day, catching 6 of his 8 targets for 79 yards and a touchdown, giving the Kangaroos 17.27 fantasy points.
First and 10. Clinton, big block up front with blocking up ahead. Spencer the block, flag is thrown, he's in with a 30-yard sprint. But let's see what the flag is about.
Illegal use of hands. Hands to the face. Defense number
Touchdown.
92.
Philip Lindsay ran 9 times for 92 yards and a touchdown for another 15.20 fantasy points. Jabril Peppers had a great game for the Kangaroos, racking up 12 tackles, 5 assisted tackles, and a forced fumble for 19 fantasy points. Devin White went super, racking up 12 tackles, 6 assisted tackles, 2 forced fumbles and a sack for 23 fantasy points. Everything just went right for the Kangaroos. The Kangaroos beat the Savages 171.37 to 101.68.
Wilson starts the game 4 for 4, and now he throws to the end zone. Rocket, touchdown. On first and goal, Wilson complete. It is Hollister, and he is in for a Seahawks touchdown. 3 receivers to the left side. Wilson on second down to the end zone. Touchdown, Tyler Lockett. Unreal. Fourth man back in the game. As Wilson fires downfield, it's Metcalf who makes the catch. DK Metcalf takes it in for a Seahawks touchdown. 53 yards. Second and goal from the 10. Wilson fires. Hollister, touchdown.
Russell Wilson shows why he is the offensive MVP favorite, going absolutely berserk, throwing for 378 yards and 5 touchdowns, giving the Berserkers 55 fantasy points. Mike Evans has now had back-to-back games scoring in the 30s in fantasy, with 31.01 fantasy points on 180 yards receiving and a touchdown. It was a close battle, and took making the highest score of the week to beat the A-team, 179.10 to 177.05.
Second and 10 now for Prescott. Able to get away from the pressure, direct traffic, and in stride go to Blake Jarwin. And Jarwin takes it all the way in. And he sees Gallup trying to keep his balance, and he does. Acrobatic score, Michael Gallup. Prescott gets it complete as Cooper takes it all the way.
Dak Prescott led the way for the Apollos, throwing for 257 yards and 3 touchdowns, putting up 32.05 fantasy points.
Henry, big hole up the middle to the end zone for the touchdown.
Derrick Henry gave the Apollos 23.70 fantasy points on 63 yards rushing and a touchdown. Henry also did it through the air, catching all 3 of his targets for 36 yards and a touchdown. The rookie DK Metcalf caught 6 of his 9 targets for 123 yards receiving and a touchdown, achieving 22.90 fantasy points. Alexander Johnson went super, racking up 13 tackles and 7 assisted tackles for 20 fantasy points. The Apollos beat the Red Sox 168.62 to 128.72.
The frame. The penalties go first down at 20, and Stafford again with a lot of time and wide open Galladay. Inside the 20 to 15 to 10, Galladay the end zone, and a touchdown to Kenny Galladay.
Kenny Galladay made that big play off one of his 4 receptions, ending the game with 132 yards receiving and a touchdown, giving the Sharks 18.80 fantasy points.
It's Hyde. No, it's Watson who flips it out to Fells for a touchdown.
Deshaun Watson put up 25.75 fantasy points on 201 yards passing and 2 touchdowns.
Eddie, I'm going to stay big. We're going to run the ball.
You may not get this close again. And here's Montgomery leaping over for the touchdown.
David Montgomery now has back-to-back weeks with 20-plus fantasy points. Montgomery caught 3 receptions for 36 yards and rushed for 40 yards and 2 touchdowns, giving the Sharks another 21.40 fantasy points. The Sharks beat the Horde 168.68 to 128.25. I also wanted to point out something I haven't seen before. Both the Apollos and Sharks had a score of 168, and both the Red Sox and Horde had a score of 128.
Seconds left in the first quarter. Pass is caught. Kittle breaks 1 tackle. Another. Wow, what a touchdown for George Kittle. Garoppolo end zone. Pass is caught for the touchdown. Kendrick Bourne. Now the 49ers hustle up to the line, snap it. Garoppolo keeps, pass is caught for the touchdown, Sanders. Garoppolo, Pettis, touchdown. And a little thriller dance on Halloween.
Jimmy Garoppolo went ham, throwing for 317 yards and 4 touchdowns, giving Snatch City 41.05 fantasy points.
Wentz with play action, drills it, and it's caught by Zach Ertz, and he's in for the touchdown.
Zach Ertz had a great game, catching 11 of his 9 targets for 103 yards and a touchdown, achieving 21.87 fantasy points. Le'Veon Bell may not have gotten in the end zone, but he helped Snatch City to victory, putting up 18.27 fantasy points on 66 yards rushing and catching 8 of his 9 targets for 55 yards. Snatch City beat the Lunatics 149.08 to 132.10. With Week 9 behind us, the trade deadline is here. Make sure to get all trades in before this coming Week 10 matchups. You will not be able to make or accept any trades after this week's games are over. Waivers will still be active. Here are the rankings at the Week 9. In the Sword Division, the Sharks, who now have the best record in the league, are on top at 8-1. Coming in second are the Berserkers at 6-3, followed by the Red Sox, Lunatics, and Kangaroos at 3-6. That's right, Legendary Warriors, the Kangaroos are in the race to go to the playoffs. In the Axe Division, the A team is on top at 7-2. In second is Snatch City at 5-4. Coming in third are the Apollos at 4-5, followed by the Horde and Savages at 3-6. There are only 4 more weeks in the regular fantasy football season. The race to the playoffs begins now. Here are the matchups for Week 10. The Berserkers battle the Lunatics. The Sharks battle the Kangaroos. The Apollos battle Snatch City. The Red Sox battle the Horde. And the Savages battle the A-Team. Good luck to everyone in Week 10, Legends of War Season 1.